and eat them.
Take them. Take the slots.
Oh, yes. Yes. This one especially shall be mine.
It was all just a dream. Are the slots still there? Are they still there? It was all just a dream. Or was it? What up, everybody? Scuffy here. And it is October 14th. We are fastly approaching the spooky hour. And we're going to do something that I've kind of had on my list. Things to do, talk about for a while. And with the new faction, the Word Bearers, added to the game, I figure it makes it for a prime opportunity, more than anything, to kind of talk about deck building. But before we do that, really quick, I want to go ahead and plug a couple things that we've got going on in the community. We've got a card creation contest taking place. We wrapped up the last one, which was demonic themed. And this next one is currently, its same rules apply, except the theme has to relate to the Ultramarines, because they are the next faction that's going to be debuting here. So go on Discord, take a look into the community contests, look at the pinned messages there to see the rules for that contest. And if you have got an idea for some Ultramarine cards, or some memery shenanigans, or some Cato Sicarius declaring himself as Cato Sicarius, the greatest Cato Sicarius of all time, you can make a card for him, you can submit it, and depending on votes, you can win some gold. And it's pretty substantial gold. So consider it. For your time and effort, the prizing is worthwhile. In addition to that, we've also still got, this is the mid-month alert, we've got the deck list creation, deck list contest going on for October. Remember, October's theme is Bump in the Night. So you want to get those deck lists submitted to me by October 25th, which is not too far away, right? And again, go on Discord, check it out. If you're not on Discord, hit me up here on the YouTubes. Let me know. PM me on the Reddit. We'll see what we can work out. I mean, I'd like to try to incorporate everybody here. I know sometimes people feel that Discord's a little exclusive. I don't think it is. It's a little, once you get in there and once you get part of the community, it's a really great community. And I just really try to celebrate it more than anything. But if you're not part of it and you still want to participate in these contests, you're more than welcome to. You just got to get in touch with the people who are running the contest, and that's more than anything. So the prizing again for the decklist submission contest is first place gets an epic of their choice, and second and third place get a rare of their choice. Now, there's no gold there, but given the fact that we have some new cards added to the game, you may want to be able to pick up some of these word bearer cards that you don't have, like an Ashen Circle, or a Dark Oratory, or a Gaelic Squad. Maybe you want to pick up a Dark Channeling. Submit your deck list. If you come in the top 3, you can make a choice for that, and that's a few less cards, a few less gems that you've got to spend on the word bearers. I'm going back in and I'm editing this and adding this in here. I almost forgot. October 25th is not only the deadline for the deck list submission contest. October 25th, we're actually doing a second night of Bar Night Legions. Bar Night Legions on the Discord. So, what is that again? It's casual Friday night, October 25th, starting about 7 o'clock my time, which I think is think that's like 1 or 2 a.m. Universal time clock time. Sorry, Europe. I can't start it any earlier because I can't do the drinking until the kid's in bed. Sorry. But if you're out there and you're within that time zone, even if it's 1 a.m. or if it's 5 a.m., wake up, hop on, get on the Vox and chat with us while we play some games, try to figure out who the Mewed Meister is. We got to fight for that title. It remains unclaimed from the first date set. Really trying to make some casual play, just some good buddy banter and some games without massive stakes. The only stake currently is who gets drunk faster and who is the Mewed Meister. Mewed Meister. Will it be you? Will it be me? Will it be whoever else shows up? I don't know. We're going to try it one more time. October 25th. Now, as you can see, I spent some. I did my initial crate opening, and I was trying to build a deck. And we'll go into this a little bit with the deck list creation. And I was missing a very crucial card that I wanted to incorporate. And I was like, I'll just buy a crate or two. It's a rare. I should be able to get it, right? Because I didn't get it in any of my event runs because I'm really dissatisfied about the pricing with the events. But that hasn't really changed. It's kind of still the same it's been for the last 2 expansions. So that doesn't surprise me. So then about 7, 8 crates in, I was like, all right, let's just go till we get a legendary. And got myself a Primarch. So that was nice. I was happy. I had to spend some gold for it. I had to buy 24 crates this time around. But I feel like it was worth it. Because a Primarch doesn't come up in the shop too often. Lorgar might not be too fabulous just yet. We'll see. We'll see where he falls. But the fact that I don't have to chase him, one off my list. Great. Now that just leaves me looking forward to what I have to do when Reboot Gilliman? Gilliman. I'll just call him Gilliman because I'm not really sure. Like, I want to say Robert, but there's no second R. And I am not one really to butcher names on purpose. I don't refer to him as Rowboat Girly Man or Rolly Boat or Smurf or Papa Smurf or any of that stuff. That's his name, Rowboat Gilman. I mean, I'm not a Wordbearers fan, but I'll call Lorgar. I could call him Luzgar, or Sorgar. But I'm not going to. I'm going to call him Lorgar because that's his name. That's his emperor-given name. Okay? So, dig it. I will call this guy names behind his back, but his name is Erebus. But we all know what he is. In case you don't know what he is, I'll give you a big hint. Okay. Anyways, let's talk about the science of deck building. Now, I use the term science extremely loosely, just kind of more to be flashy than anything else. There's no science to it. There is a thought process. There's a thought process to deck building. There's kind of an art to deck building to some degree, but it varies. There's no formulaic approach to deck building. There are several things to keep in mind in deck building. Number one being who your warlord is. What are their strengths? What are their abilities? Number two, how do the cards in the given legion pool or faction pool, depending on what they are, improve, strengthen, relate, or interact with that warlord's ability? Number three, what is the end game? How are we winning the game? Is this an aggro approach? Is this a mid-range approach? Is this a control approach? Is this a tempo approach? Is this a play fast and hard? We don't really have manipulation yet in the game. Oh God, I would love some manipulation. People would not. I mean, the closest thing we had to manipulation was secret orders, but really I would like that. for like a month. But what is the approach? What is the win condition that we're going for? Obviously, we know we're taking down our opponent's Warlord to 0 health. But how are we getting there? What are our power cards in getting there? Is it related directly to our Warlord's ability? Or is our Warlord simply enhancing what is taking place? Now, Argyle here, taking a look at him, he's unique in the fact that he's actually got 2 options to build him right now, right? You can choose to build him as Argyle, and if you don't include 15 Chaos cards, that's the Argyle build, you start with him. Or if you include 15 Chaos cards, you start as a Rom, which is very unique. And again, as I mentioned this with the Word Bearer's crate opening, I think this is a very, very nice foreshadowing of potential possibilities that we could see with other deck construction rules. And futuremore, I would love to see deck construction rules make their way into the game via a third or a secondary starting card, like a banner or a standard, or something like that, where basically you've got Argyle and then you've got the Word Bearer's banner that starts in the game with him and increases your hand size by 1 or raises your initiative or your health by 1, depending on the rarity and whatever. I mean, these are just brainstorming ideas right now, and we don't have time to get into that, but it really opens the gate, this concept, and I'm very curious to see that. So you've got 2 different ways to build this one Warlord. That's neat. And then within those 2 ways, depending on the cards that you use, you have different ways to go about it. Now, his standard ability here is really just dealing 1 damage, and if they die, you can act again. So he's kind of like this weird control Warlord, right? He can pick and ting kind of in the same way that that Tarek can with the Sons of Horus, except he's not drawing cards, he's just able to ping again. How does that benefit? Well, really it benefits him primarily with regards to the Blessed Sun, or the Rom. I don't want to say whispers necessarily, but it really is a Blessed Sun. He drops this by 2 every time he kills a unit, so it gives him kind of a late game option to turn into Rom, heal 5, and then become a different Warlord. So he shifts his focus from a kind of a mini board control Warlord to a direct aggro 3 attack, what's the word I'm looking for? What is what is it? Not battle standard. Yeah, this guy. Battle honor. That's the word I'm looking for. Battle honor heal 2, so which is great at killing troops and healing. But you can start with that, or you can kind of build up to that. And you can take a look at this. A couple of guys who have already played it. We're all testing things out. We still are new with these guys. These guys haven't even been out a week yet. I think Argyle is preferred over Rom. If you're going to play Rom and you don't have Angron, I guess that's what you would go for. He's really like a worse version of Angron, because he doesn't have the speed burst of the World Eater's card pool, nor does he have Armor of Mars, and he's got obviously less health, which makes a big difference, and he doesn't have Whispers. So all the strengths that Angron has, Rom does not. But that's just Argyle, right? So again, what is your Warlord? What is his ability? What is his strengths? How do the cards in his faction relate to him, enhance him, power him? Some cards are better than others for certain Warlords, right? And then third, how do you want to play him? What's your win condition? Do you want to drop big things at the end? Do you want to have a lot of little things? Do you want to pick through your opponent? What is your win condition? What is your play style with the deck? And then you look at the cards that factor into that. So let's go into the cards here. Let's go into a deck, right? So we're going to do the deck list. Easy peasy. You picked your Warlord. You picked Argyle. Now, this is still just a draft for me, and I'm missing about 9. I'm missing 9 Word Bearer cards, so I don't even have the full set to really toy with and go into, which is great because for this particular experiment, this kind of highlights the evolving process of how a deck builds. If you had all the cards available to you right out the gate, sure, you could jump right into it. but it's nice to kind of see as you play a deck and as your collection for a faction grows, you identify through the course of that gameplay what cards are really not worthwhile. What cards are you going to phase out eventually as a better card comes along? For instance, I've got the Dark Martyr in here, right? Now this is a common. It's a 7-drop, and I like the fact that it's got a Rally and Relentless, and it's got fairly decent stats. I like that, but it's a common. As the game progresses, now I've got to switch back to collection here. As the game progresses, I would like to replace the Dark Martyr, ideally with, I could go 2 Possessed Marines, or I could go with this guy here, or I could go, well, this is all cards. There we go. I'm missing. There's some cards here that aren't showing up. What's the deal, buddy? Because I've got those guys. I'm just not throwing them in there. Sor Talgron, I definitely would like to have him in there. So I'd love to put in, Sor Talgron, or maybe a Captain Apostle. Maybe a Mutant Astartes wouldn't be bad, although the cost is much more significant. I don't have them right now. The rarity evolves, same cost, maybe better stats. He costs more, but the fact that he's given me 3 Astartes and he's drawn 2 less, the thing with that is then that changes my build. And we're not even at that point yet, right? There's quite a few rare Astartes, epic Astartes, and legendaries that I don't have. So right now I'm just playing with what I've got. I don't have Book of Lorgar. I could put demons in, but I think demons with Argol Tal don't make sense. Why don't they make sense? Well, because his ability just doesn't work for it. His ability is a damage ability, and he can act again, which costs energy. And if you want to use his ability, you've got to have energy. And if you're playing demons, you have less energy. So, out the gate. Sorry, not going to work. Now, we're not drawing cards with him, right? We're just paying 1 damage. He's got 30 health. So what are his weaknesses? Take a look at what his weaknesses are, and then I go into the next step, which is basically what cards do I have within the card pool that enhance him or are going to assist him, right? So let's take a look here. Actually go into, it's a little tedious jumping back and forth, but this is what we're going to do. So generally, I like flanking. I think this is a good time to kind of point out the 4 hierarchies for me, really, in terms of cards. First off, number 1, fast troops. A fast troop is great for the fact that you get to attack a warlord with it, if you so choose. The fact that it comes in and can do whatever its ability is, in addition to anything else that you give it. You can buff a troop that's fast and then still use them. Great. Fast, number 1. A card that's fast, great card. Flank. Flank is the next step. Now, these guys are cheap, common, they've got low health. They're kind of a one and done, right? They're like a very cheap version of Goldstone Hunters. And they're only good for attacking your opponent's troops. But I would say flank is the next step down from fast. I'd put that as a 2 spot, given the fact that very often flanking is very powerful, getting rid of a unit, dealing damage to a unit enough to be able to kill it. In this instance here, especially dropping it to low enough health where I can use Argol Tal's ability to kill it. And because they're so cheap, it's very likely that I can combo those with just 3 energy and deal 4 damage to a troop, kill that troop, benefit Argol Tal, act again, right? So that's beneficial. Number 3, in terms of power, I prefer rally effects, right? Rally effects are very powerful. You could almost kind of say rally and flank go side by side, depending on what they are, given the fact that they come in and they can do something. The difference with the rally versus flank is very good at controlling a board, very good at assisting, clearing a threat, posing, eliminating. The rally effects vary. A rally effect might give you cards. It might damage a target. It might, in the case of Ambassador Melgator, return a card to its owner's hand. It could heal a warlord. Rally effects vary, so depending on what they are, you're going to gain a benefit from them, but it's a one-turn benefit. How do you make the most of it? Some rally effects are better than others. +1 to my infantry troops. Seems like a decent thing for 1 energy, right? And it's not bad. But if I don't have a whole lot of infantry troops, why would I have this 1-drop card in there? Just because it's a cheap card? Not worth it. If I was playing a bunch of infantry, which would mean not as many Word Bearers cards, these guys would probably be shoo-ins. But that's not the way I'm going. Then take a look at other cards. So what do we got here with Terran Reality, right? This is an effect. What is Argel Tal's game plan? Well, he's kind of a control warlord, right? So if this gives me an option to return a friendly troop and a random troop to their decks, it gives me an option to control the board. Very useful in late game threat situations, especially against an Erebus matchup because his ability is very powerful. This is more, I'm including 2 in here kind of as a meta thing just because people are playing Erebus and testing him out in practice. But realistically, it's a very good card. It's a very low energy card. Again, for Argel Tal, allows him to use his ability multiple times. Then when you switch to ROM, it's very useful. Nope. Getting some requests for down. We'll get to that. Man, I gotta shut my notifications off. But we'll get there. But that's a very good, useful tool for if you switch to ROM and then your opponent drops down like a Telemon Dreadnought. You can throw a body out, Terran Reality, it bounces back, and you can keep going face if you need to go that. Now these guys here I just put in because they're cheap. They put bodies on the table, and the fact that those wounded zealots in the case where I'm like facing an Angron player, right? I'm not going to have the option to use my ability to do any damage to his units, which means I'm not going to be able to give my ROM Whisper going, or my Blessed Sun, rather, going. These guys here give me the option of putting 3 bodies down on the table, but if I had 4 energy, I can put these down and kill the 2 zealots and drop the cost of my Blessed Sun. It's a little backwards, and realistically, these guys work so much better if you're doing follow-up with the Heralds of Truth on your next turn. That's a very powerful concept because you're getting lesser demons to your hand, right? But again, Argel Tal doesn't want demons. In this regard, using his ability, you've got demons, great. They're not helping you, so not a good idea. So we're gonna take that out. So they're just in there right now because that's what I've got for the card pool, and I'm just kind of testing things out. I could put these guys in here, but what's the point? That's 1 body for 2 cost, and we're looking at value 2 bodies or 3 bodies for 2 cost, but with the additional aid of helping out my game plan. My game plan is do enough damage, control the board, and have a point late in the game where I shift into ROM and then use that additional battle honor and attack to help me win the game. Now, because of that, I've got to have ways to heal myself. This is just a heal 3 to my units, which includes my Warlord. It's great if I'm healing up big, beefy, nasty things. Right now, I don't have any big, beefy, nasty things to throw in there. Now, I will say this. I'm tempted to throw in a Colic squad, Colic support, because their frontline and their relentless is very powerful if you are able to trigger it, but it's a big if. But the fact that their frontline is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. So I'm on the fence. I might include these guys there. Dark Oratory is not going to do what I want it to do for this because even though I've got a lot of tactics in my deck, I don't have a lot of troops that I want to buff. I mean, there's a balance there between troops and tactics, and I'm shifting over. The Jadama squad I had in there initially because putting in play a Horus Occultist at the end of your turn, you're getting 2 units for the price of 1. That's not bad. But it seemed kind of kitschy, and for what I was doing, it didn't quite work. So I get a Horus Occultist into play. What is that? That's a cheap body. What is it doing for me? What is this guy doing for me? I can't attack with him because then I'm not getting more Horus Occultists. So not as useful. I think I'll find some 3 or 4 other rare Astartes troops that are going to be able to go on that replace it. What I did want to use instead was this here. This is great because this is a control. It's direct damage, but it's very useful in controlling the board as well because not only am I dealing 4 damage to an enemy, if it dies, deal 2 damage to all other enemies. That 2 damage potentially is dropping other enemies' health, which allow me to use my ability. It's a 5 cost. It's an expensive card. It's a late game card, but it's right when you need it the most. And it's for 4 damage. Sometimes that's enough to win the game. So I took out 2 of these guys and put in 2 of these. It upped the cost of my deck a little bit, but it was worth it, I think. Now, I could put this one in here with Argoltal's ability. I mean, you could ping and ping and ping and give these guys Demon Host several times. It's considerable. That might be something to test out, but given the cost and some of the cost of the other cards in there, I'm holding off on that for just right now. Now, I did put 1 Dark Channeling in there just to kind of test it out because it reduces the cost of the demons. It's mixed results. It's an epic, though, and my epics are very limited, so I might keep it, but I just picked up Dark Blessing, and I like this better. I've got to have a Friendly Astartes on table to stay. However, it's got Reflection, and for 6 energy, I can give an Astartes 3 Demon Hosts and for the same cost and make them much more powerful. So I like that, and I might put that in there. So here's an example of where a card replaces a card, right? Destiny's Hand, again, board-wide damage. Even though it's going to hurt Argoltal, I have the ability to deal damage to their troops. I have the ability to bring them into play where I can use Argoltal's ability, or I just can get troops for myself with a Chaos Spawn, and that works more often than not. So a good card to have. And then you get into the higher cost cards here. Now, Architect of Heresy, is it legendary? This is a really good card. So yeah, that's almost like a given. There's no reason why I wouldn't put it in there. Now, and I put 2. Did I put 2 of these in there? No, I just put 1 in there. Given all the other damage and direct damage and everything like that, if your 1 is good, I might go with 2, but I like the 2 Terran Reality better than Balthamer's Sword for the cost. Stunning the Warlord is nice, but then if you're facing a Warlord who doesn't have a troop, like Angron, then you could end up having 2 dead cards in your hand that are high cost cards on top of that. So I'd rather not. And then again, we get into the Dark Martyr, just something who, if he hits the table, he's going to be big and nasty. He's going to get bigger and nastier if I can keep him alive for a turn or 2, and that's going to help me win the game. Now, I could very well take him out and put him in with a neutral card, a neutral flanker, with the Vulturax, right? And right now we're kind of scrolling past some other faction cards, and we're kind of getting into the next step. So we've looked at the cards that are in your faction. Then the next step is to look at cards outside of your faction. And Vulturax, same cost, but flanking, bigger, beefier health, but he's going to lack the ability to do to gain Demon Host on the Rally and the Relentless. And he's also got a backlash where that's dealing 3 damage to myself. And I don't really want that when I have a low health Warlord, so I'm passing on that. However, Vorax is a very strong contender of a card that could go in there as a flanker, again, tearing, kind of tapping into his, the Daggertal Bikes, right? Vorax could go in there, and I might put Vorax in there over a couple like the Trap. The Trap I was testing out kind of to help it with board control. I might replace the Trap with Vorax. Let them put a troop down that I can flank and destroy. And if I'm going up against a solo Warlord, a Vorax can deal some nice damage. So I might swap those 2 out. It again changes the cost, but it's a card that enhances my playstyle. I need to be able to heal, and I need to be able to act if I'm at a point where I'm doing ROM, right? And they stun my Warlord and I can't do anything. I've got to be able to recover from that. So that's where Phi Alpha comes into play. Melgator is good for returning so many threats, or return your own troops into hand if you so choose. Ekratrez, again, a healing card. Seek and Destroy is that board control as well as comboing with Argoltal's ability. It helps you drop the health of troops and ping things around. And then because of the amount of tactics I have in the deck, currently, I went with Void Engagement because it's drawing me a card and potentially dealing 3 damage. High potential of dealing 3 damage. Medium to high potential, 18 tactics, more than half my deck. Stand a pretty good chance, right? So that's how I make those choices. And I take a look. We take a look at the cards that are in our faction. We take a look at the cards outside of our faction that enhance what we're doing with the deck, such as direct damage, or not really direct damage, but flank damage, dealing with board control troops, as well as the need to heal. That's kind of the running theme through most of the neutral cards I've got. Then what I tend to do, and most importantly, is always look at the curve on the deck. I look at the little ramp here. You can take a look at the list here of the cards. 9 times out of 10, these cards gradually shift to be, certain cards all the time, always. As my collection fills out, some of these cards are going to get replaced. I can already tell you a couple cards that I'm already on the fence or thinking about changing. The Trap, Dark Channeling. I might get rid of that Informant Network. We'll see. It's served its purpose, but I might put in a Skitarii Protector instead, give myself a little bit more protection up front, or maybe even a Joker Company. That's how we evolve the process. And then we take a look at the deck info over there with the cost of the cards. I've got a lot in there of the 2 and 3 cost cards, and that's great. Again, with my ability, the ability is an act again ability that costs energy. So the more energy I have to act again, the better. The downside to that is if I run out of cards, right? I don't have any, aside from Void Engagement, I'm not drawing too many other cards. So if I drop all my stuff onto the board and I'm not doing anything with it, then I'm at a loss. However, the power cards there, when the 6s and the 7s, Destiny's Hand, gives me bodies on the table, Camille's doing direct damage, Architect of Heresy's a powerful, powerful card. I save that specifically for something that I can steal that's going to be usually their nasty thing. I'll take their nasty thing back. Unless it's a Malgahurst, in which case then he's going to get an Architect of Heresy, and then we just go back and forth, and we'd be playing tag. And then Dark Martyr to kind of help juice up the deal. It's not perfect. This is not the final evolution of this deck list. Again, I'm missing 9 cards, and the list in of itself has got some spots, but it evolves. We take a look at the things that we know we want to change out of the gate, right? And then we say, okay, when we get a card that's better than the Trap and better than Dark Channeling, let's go ahead and try it out. Let's fit it. Let's put in that dark, was it the Dark Gifts? What's that? I gotta scroll all the way back up here. The one that gives the demon host, Dark Blessing. Let's try this out. I want to try this out real bad. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to get rid of this Dark Channeling. Now, the Dark Channeling gives me troops. That's not bad, but they're demons. That's not really good. However, I also still need bodies, right? I need bodies to be able to go with my demon host things. So it might be better for me to have, instead of the Trap, which I giving the Trap demon host, like, what are you doing? Like, that's just silly. Like, I guess if you got like Ward and Survivor on it, can you even do that? Can you even give it? Right? Hang on here. Dark Blessing, friendly Astartes. So it's only going to work on the Astartes. So, do I have, aside from Zesigal Squad and the Architect of Heresy, I don't have really any Astartes that works for, so I'm going to have to scrap that idea. Take a good look at your cards, because it would suck if I had that in my hand and like, alright, I'm going to use it on the 2 troops I can use it on. One of them is a late game, and the other one is not going to survive the first turn, so that's just not going to fly. So for now, Dark Channeling will stay in. Gives me a couple bodies to work with. One thing that is nice with Dark Channeling is if you get a Telos changers in there, with the amount of tactics that you have here in hand, you can really help, again, hammer down any sort of troops that they've got on the board and control that board with just playing the tactics. I might consider like a mortar strike in here, maybe a mortar strike for the Informant network. We'll see. I don't know, that's an evolving process. We're trading tactic for tactic, but here you're taking a look at the curve a little bit. We dropped a couple 3-costers, and we gained, I think we gained a couple 4-costers, right? So, all right, it's starting to smooth out, but we still are the bulk of it being 2 and 3-costers. We keep that in mind. And then we take a look, and just as we play, and that's the final thing. That's the final part of the scientific method in terms of deck building. You play the deck, and you play it, and you play it, and you play about a dozen games, half a dozen games consistently against non-bots, and you find yourself saying, what cards did I just never choose to use? What cards, when I use them, was not a good thing for me to play? One thing that I found, Possessed Marine, I thought was going to be solid, and it is, but it's a big cost card for this deck. So if I'm playing Possessed Marine, that's it. That's my action. And with 6 energy, I might want to have a few more options. Might be able to do some damage or combo some stuff. So for now, Possessed Marine is sitting out. He's not bad. He might make his way in later, but initially with the build that I had, he just wasn't doing it for me. I wanted to play lots of tactics. I wanted to do lots of things to change the board out. Putting down a Possessed Marine, if they've already got 2 or 3 other troops down, that's just giving them something to kill with their troops. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So the momentum in that deck is a little different. But if it shifts over time and I find myself playing like the Trap, like I said, it was a board control thing, and I tried it out. I think I played about 10 games with it, and I've used it twice. And I had 2 copies in that deck. So it was on the chopping block for me initially, and just over the course of those games, it's like I used it once, that actually went off effectively. Just better cards for me to play at that point. So I'm going to take it out. I'm just going to take it out. And I just don't feel bad about that at all. I could put in, you'll notice here, I've got a Jubac in, but I don't have my Goldstone Hunters. So I might find a way to get those guys in there too. But we'll see, because those guys are one and done. And maybe I want something a little bit more worthwhile. But maybe not, because Goldstone Hunters are always kind of good. They are pumpable. And there's few ways to pump things here. And I might change that around now that I'm thinking about it. For 4 energy, I could turn the Goldstones into a 4 attack. And if I have a Secretary Exarch, then they would be a 5 attack. And then you start to think, and you evolve, and your thought process goes out there, and you just test and test and test. You replace one card with another card. You see how that card works. You see how that card interacts with your other cards. Eventually, you get to a point where you feel very comfortable. And some cards of those are just personal preference. And there's not really anything bad about that. I think that's kind of where the end result is. You're comfortable with the deck. You know what the deck does. You know what cards you have and what you can rely upon and what you're comfortable relying upon. If you've got a card in your deck, like if I'm like, oh man, I really don't want to draw Balthamor's Sword ever, then why is it in my deck? Why is it in my deck? It shouldn't be. I should find something else in there, right? Now, as it is, that's the destroy card option that the word bearers have. I could just bank on Terran Reality, but having a hard destroy and a stun is not a bad thing for its cost. That's just what they've got. But there are times, like with the other factions out there, there are times where you don't play a destroy card, like Perfection's Flight doesn't go in every Emperor's Children's card deck, or if it does, it's a one of, if that. It's a very powerful card, but it's a high cost card. And whereas Conqueror goes in just about every World Eater's deck, because even though it's high cost, it's extremely powerful. And this day and age too, with Ward, it's a great way to get past ward, or your opponent drops a bunch of troops on the board with Lucretia, and you get rid of them all. So it's a very powerful card. So that's like almost a 2-of, despite its cost. You just have to weigh the pros and cons and base it on your own experience. So let's kind of flash back and review so I can remember what I said, and at the same time kind of bring it all up again. So we talked about, number one, the basic overall approach to your deck, right? Who's your warlord? What are their strengths and weaknesses? What cards in the faction can enhance those strengths and weaknesses that are available to you? What cards outside the faction are going to continue to enhance those strengths and weaknesses? What is your game approach? How are you playing the game, and how are you ending the game? And then you look at card cost. You look at your deck info. You see how that scales out. How does that work? Again, tying it back into your Warlord's ability and your game plan. Does that leave you a lot of room to wiggle with at the end game? Does it give you too much at the forefront and then you peter out? If all your stuff costs 2 or 3 and you don't have any big beefy things, and you're consistently going against warlords and opponents who are playing big beefy things that you just don't have answers to, then the answer might be shifting some of those 2 and 3 cost cards into a 4, 5, 6 cost card slot in order to give yourself more answers. That's the evolving process of your deck. That's the evolving. And you play it, and you play it, and you test it, and you see what cards work and what cards don't work. You make mental notes as far as cards that you want to work into your deck and cards that are on the chopping block that can be phased out. And then over the course of time, you just build your deck from there, and it evolves. Now, that's the single person approach. And that's generally the best way to go. You could just throw random cards in there. You could just go into your word bearers list and just say, okay, well, yeah, we'll put one of that in because that's an epic, and that's a rare, and we'll put that in. And then, yeah, I've got some Astartes in there. And I mean, you could just throw stuff in there blindly, but you're gonna get a lot less positive and encouraging results by a blind approach than at least trying to take a more careful approach to it. Now, these are great. This guy's great. Rally Game, I might put him in there too. Plus, I like that art. But you know, there's stuff in there that just throwing it in there without a plan is going to bite you in the long run, because if I end up drawing and I just don't really realize that, oh, I've actually got just a bunch of 5 and 6 cost cards, when I get to that point where I've got 7, 8 energy, I'm only going to be able to play 1 troop and my ability, if that. And maybe I want to have more range. Maybe I want to have more flexibility. Maybe I want to be able to play my ability 3 times, or combo it with one of these 6 cost cards that are a widespread damage tactic. What does my Warlord do? How do I want to play him? What is his end game? The fact that I turn into Rom and heal, ideally at the end of the game, and shift modes, throwing my opponent off and having control of the board, and then drop a couple larger support cards or whatnot, that's great. But if I've got too many high cost cards, then I have a point where I have to choose, do I play this high cost card, or do I shift gears because my Blessed Sun is at 7 energy now? That 7 energy is 7 energy. If I can play 7 energy, but I can still also drop Equitrez, might be worth it. So, anyways, I think that's kind of the general approach to deck building. Then you take your deck and you play it, and you play it, and you play it. And if cards aren't working that you don't like, take them out. Put something else in. If you've got Zessical Squad and they are just not doing anything for you, take them out and put in the next best thing. Put in these guys. These guys might go in mine anyways, although then I'll be out of infantry, so we'll see. Put the next best thing in that's a similar replacement. Maybe a rarity higher if you have it, because 10 generally in the game, rarity seems to be a little bit better. and continue to evolve, and then play it again and play it again, and get to a point where you feel like you've got what you can get out of it, and then go ask for assistance from your lodge mates. I mean, you can ask for your assistance from your lodge mates right out the gate. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a wonderful benefit of our lodge, having lodges, right? You can go, you can share your decks, you can go into your Discord, you can say, hey, man, just like somebody messaged me there, give me some pointers about how to play this Warlord. There's nothing wrong with that. But I will say this, I will caution you this, what you'll end up getting is you're going to get the responses from people who've gone through this process and who have this experience. And they're going to give you these lists of cards. And they're going to say, this is what you need this, you need this, you need this, drop that, get rid of that, this, that. And they'll make you your deck for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Kind of, I mean, for the most part, unless you really enjoy doing it yourself. But what you'll end up lacking is the insight as far as why those cards are so important. Why that card? I mean, you can ask that question, but you miss out on the opportunity to understand how it interacts. How many times did I play this card a certain way and realize the strength of playing this card in conjunction to another card is a huge benefit, and it was way better than playing one big beefy nasty card. Okay, you only learn that by experience or by having it done against you. You miss out on that by somebody just rattling off the cards. And then you say, okay, well, maybe you don't have those, right? Maybe they're all epics and they're all legendaries. And you're like, oh, well, I don't have that. I'm going to have to go with the next best thing. Go with the next best thing. Just because you don't have it doesn't mean that you can't play it. It just means that your deck isn't their deck. And as time goes on, you'll get the cards to replace, to work into, or you'll move on to a different deck. You'll find out that, this just wasn't for me, or I really want to make this work. I'm really going to stick into this. I'm really going to make this guy work. What do I need to make him work? I really need that card. When that card comes up in the shop, man, you pick it up. You don't pass on it. And if that's the one that you need and your deck continues and goes forward from there, great. If it's not and you're still play testing it, good for you too. I'll tell you this. It's one thing to build a deck. It's another thing to know it. And I'm not just saying know the deck in terms of what cards are in. I'm talking about being able to pilot it, like step back into it. That's one reason, again, why I go through every month in the season and I pick a Warlord and I play a Warlord for 2 months back to back. Because really, through the course of those 2 months, even though I might make a few changes to the deck here and there, through the course of those 2 months, I know that deck. Not just the Warlord. I know the deck. I know what cards I have to me. I know I can take a look at the cards remaining in the game and tap on that little deck and say, okay, I've got 11 cards in here, and 3 of those cards are ones that I just need to draw it. I just need to get up that draw. There it is. It's on the top. Let's roll. Or, okay, I've played my 2 big aces. I've got one last Hail Mary left, and if he's got what he has and I don't, then it's gonna be a tough sale. Or if I can get my stuff off before he can get his stuff off, you know your deck, and then gradually vis-a-vis, you also know what your opponents play generally. If you play Saul, deck list may vary here and there, but you're going to know how Saul plays, and you're going to know what his cards are that works really good, and you're going to know how to shunt him the best. Saul bringing down Sardarian, okay. Win of the week. I'll hold my win of the week for his Rillanor or for his Sardarian, his guys with shield, right? Everything else I can deal with one way or the other, but those winnows go for those guys. You're playing against Lehman Russ, right? He's got ward troops, okay. All right, I just need to get rid of his ability to get a lot of pack attack going off. How do I do that? What is my deck? What do I have that can average that? Do I have flank cards in my hand? Do I have area damage? Do I have defensive satellites, artillery strike? What do I have to hold on to for to circumvent his play style? We're kind of getting a little off topic, but these are things that I go into when I do the deck list. Each time is how to play the deck, and then how do you play against the deck. That's not just, random suggestions. That's through the course of experience, play, and time spent playing. And if you build a deck, you build the deck, or you get advice from building the deck, or you build the deck with somebody else, and you spend the time playing it, you will get that experience. You may not have the deck that everybody's running. You may not play Magnus. You may not, because you know what, you don't want to be that guy, or you don't want to be part of the crowd, or maybe you don't have Magnus, and that's a completely okay reason too. So you play Ahriman. Ahriman plays different than Magnus, but if you can make Ahriman yours and you can play him and win with him, good for you. That's the whole point of this game. And if you're having fun, whether you're winning or losing, that's really like goal number 1. Goal number 2 is make it yours, have fun. Goal number 3 is have fun, and goal number 4 is if you can have fun with everybody else. So there's a trend there, right? But you're only going to get that experience by doing it yourself, by playing the deck. Every single one of these decks, I didn't just make these decks. And some of these are a little bit rusty, but they've all been updated. They've all been updated with Prospero cards, and they've all been played. I build the deck, and then I play until I win 3 times with it, and then I move on and I build the next deck, where I revise the next deck. So every single one of these decks I had to win 3 times with, against a non-bot. Some of them were harder than others, but they were doable. They were doable. Some of them I just had a blast in doing it, and it's like putting on an old pair of shoes, right? Like good comfy shoes. They're somewhat squirmy, but at the same time, I know I fit in here. So that's how you get to that point. That's how you get to that point. You get to that familiarity, and then when you play against somebody who's playing a Warlord that you've played extensively, you know how they're going to operate. You know what they're going for. You know that, okay, so you haven't played your Architect of Heresy yet, huh? Okay. Then let me just tease you with all these little tiny guys, all these little spawns of chaos. No? Okay, by the time I put down something that you're going to want of Architect of Heresy, maybe it's got Ward on it, and then you can't, and then that's how I win the game. Just play around it, but you'll know that that's what they've got. Now, Architect of Heresy goes for any word bearer's Warlord, really. But if you're going Argotol versus Argotol, you'll know at what point in the game you've got the edge versus them. Whoever goes to Rom first, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? I don't know. It's still very early on to find out. So I hope that's been helpful. I really do. It's kind of a vague concept. There is no perfect way. Again, it varies by Warlord. But there's general key points to kind of keep in mind. Some Warlords throw some of those points out the window. When you're building a deck for Saul, the whole point of playing a deck where you have less energy, or less cards that cost less energy each turn, that's huge. And that changes the way that you put cards in your deck. Instead of having 2s and 3s, I might have 3s and 4s, because my 3s and 4s are 2s and 3s, such as Lucretia. Ornitov starts with additional energy, and I think Thaddeus Fail does too. In that regard, do you really need troops that cost 2 energy if you're going to start with 3? Things to keep in mind, things to think about. There are just some Warlords that just kind of circumvent some of those rules, but generally, all those rules are very useful in keeping a general approach to building a deck. So, with that being said, I think I've burned through an hour of my time, an hour of your time, and I hope you've been a little bit educated in terms of how to build a deck, some thoughts in terms of approaching it. Maybe you think the same, maybe you don't. If you don't, please let me know. What do you do? What are your steps? What things do you keep in mind when you're building a deck? How do you decide what cards get replaced and what cards don't? I'll tell you what, when I was playing Alpha Legion, and this is a way back when they first came out, right? I played Alpha Legion, and I had all of the legendaries except for Ifrit Squad. And then I got Ifrit Squad, and I slapped him in the deck. And I played about 15 games, and the 5 or 6 times Ifrit Squad was in my hand, I never played him. Now, he's a good card, he's a powerful card, but for the Alfarius deck that I was playing at the time, he wasn't useful, and I took him out. Not every card goes in every deck, although I tell you what, these guys need to start going in your Alpha Legion decks. If you're playing Alpha Legion, put these guys in. They shut down flank, they shut down fast, and they're a nice fat body that can't be Melgatored anymore. So that's just a little thing there. But the point is, not every deck has to have every legendary. Has to have 2 times every epic. Some just don't play into it. Now, Ifrit Squad might work better for Exodus or Ingo Peck, but they definitely didn't work for Alfarius, or at least for that Alfarius that I had. I don't think the Book of Lorgar necessarily is required for Argal Tal. I really don't. I think it could work for Erebus, definitely. Lorgar benefits from it if you're not going for Whispers, although I gotta tell you, I don't know. I gotta try him out. Really see what his fit is. So I'm not wise enough to even spout wisdom as far as what cards are what yet for the Word Bears. We're getting there. But that's it. I keep digressing. I hope you've learned something. I hope it's been beneficial to you. And that's about it for me, guys. Alright, guys. That's it for me. Keep playing Legions.
And now it's time for Jubac-a Believe It. He's got the good stuff. We're joining a Lehman Russ Numian game in action. And with an abandoned supplies, I draw the Jubac that you won't believe. I'm going to make a target here, though, using those warded troops. He has to choose. Does he go with Jubac, or does he go with my pack attack troop? And that's his choice. Numian's a difficult battle. He's putting Survivor on frontline. It's getting nasty, but I just got an Ashen Bones and used his own Ashen Bones against him. Now, if I was a betting man, I'd bet that stung quite a bit. That Sabotage can come in awfully handy against troops with Survivor. What do you think I'm going to do with it? Well, oh shit. Say goodbye to that front line. Shit. Goodbye, Numian. Jubac-a Believe It.
Alright, that wraps it up for me. If you liked what you saw, feel free to like and subscribe. Add any comments below. And if you think the video might be useful or the series might be useful, feel free to share that with other players that you know as well. And we'll talk to you later.